As the Middle East on the brink of a massive shift, President Trump has just issued a stern, final warning to Tehran while a sudden withdrawal of American personnel from Qatar's Udeid Air Base has sent shockwaves through global capitals. Is this a strategic retreat or the calm before a storm? Stay tuned as we break down the high-stakes moves happening right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving deep into a rapidly developing situation in the Middle East that has world leaders on edge. In the opening weeks of 2026, the geopolitical landscape is shifting under the weight of renewed tensions between Washington and Tehran. President Donald Trump has recently intensified his rhetoric, issuing what many are calling a final ultimatum to the Iranian leadership. This comes amidst widespread anti-government protests within Iran that have seen a significant and often violent response from local security forces. As the international community watches closely, the United States has begun making visible changes to its military posture in the region. Specifically, the reported drawdown of personnel from the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar has raised critical questions about the White House's next move. In this video, we will explore the nuances of these developments, the strategic reasoning behind the troop movements, and the potential for escalation in this volatile region. The cornerstone of this current crisis is the direct and assertive communication coming from the Oval Office. President Trump has historically utilized a maximum pressure campaign against Iran, but the 2026 iteration of this policy appears more urgent. Following reports of mass arrests and potential executions of protesters in Iranian cities, Trump took to social media and official briefings to deliver a clear message: help is on its way. This phrase has been interpreted by many as a signal of imminent U.S. intervention if the crackdown does not cease. The president warned that any further senseless killing would result in very strong action from the United States. Unlike traditional diplomatic warnings, these statements were paired with a complete cancellation of scheduled meetings with Iranian officials, effectively closing the door on immediate dialogue. This hardline stance is designed to deter the Iranian government from further escalation, but it also places the U.S. on a potential collision course with Tehran's regional ambitions. To understand the significance of the personnel withdrawal, one must first understand the importance of Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, known as the largest American military installation in the Middle East. Al Udeid serves as the forward headquarters for U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM. It houses roughly 10,000 troops and acts as the nerve center for all air operations across a massive territory stretching from Northeast Africa to Central Asia. The base is not just a landing strip, it is a sophisticated hub for intelligence, surveillance, and missile defense coordination. For decades, it has symbolized the permanent nature of the American security umbrella in the Persian Gulf. However, its proximity to Iran, located just across the water, makes it a primary target in any potential conflict. When news broke that personnel were being advised to leave the facility, it signaled to the world that the U.S. is taking Iranian threats of retaliation with extreme seriousness as the regional temperature continues to rise. The withdrawal of personnel from Qatar is being described by officials as a posture change rather than a full-scale evacuation. According to reports from early January 2026, several hundred non-essential personnel and military contractors were advised to depart Al Udeid Air Base. This move was echoed by the United Kingdom, which also began reducing its footprint at the facility. Military analysts noted that at least 6 KC-135 Stratotanker aerial refuelers were seen departing the base, heading south toward more secure locations in Saudi Arabia. This relocation of high-value assets is a classic military defensive measure intended to protect expensive hardware and essential personnel from a potential first strike or retaliatory missile barrage. While the Qatari government has maintained that the base remains fully operational, they confirmed that these measures were taken specifically in response to current regional tensions. This proactive drawdown suggests that the U.S. military is preparing for a range of scenarios, including direct kinetic engagement. The catalyst for the U.S. military's caution is a series of explicit threats from Tehran. Senior Iranian officials, including Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, have warned that any U.S. strike on Iranian soil or assets would be met with an immediate response against any regional country hosting American bases. This host nation liability strategy is designed to pressure Middle Eastern allies like Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE to distance themselves from Washington's military plans. Iran has demonstrated its capability to strike Al-Udeid before. In June of the previous year, a series of short-range ballistic missiles were fired at the base following a period of high tension. Although U.S. Patriot missile defense systems intercepted most of the incoming projectiles, the message was clear: no base in the region is out of reach. By threatening the very infrastructure of the Gulf states, Iran hopes to create a diplomatic shield that prevents the U.S. from using its local bases for offensive operations. While the international focus is on military movements, the root of the current tension lies within Iran's borders. Since late 2025, a massive wave of anti-government protests has swept through major Iranian cities, initially sparked by a collapsing economy and the record low value of the rial. Unlike previous movements, these protests have seen a diverse coalition of participants, from university students to merchants in the Tehran bazaar. The Iranian government's response has been severe, involving nationwide internet blackouts and a heavy-handed security presence. Reports from human rights organizations suggest that thousands have been detained, with the judiciary threatening speedy trials and executions for those labeled as insurgents. President Trump has framed his warnings around these human rights concerns, positioning the U.S. as a supporter of the Iranian patriots. This internal volatility makes the situation unpredictable, as the Iranian leadership may feel that a foreign conflict is the only way to divert attention from their domestic struggles. Despite the warlike posture, there are still undercurrents of diplomacy at play. Regional powers like Turkey, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia have reportedly been working behind the scenes to de-escalate the situation. These nations fear that a full-scale war between the U.S. and Iran would not only destabilize the Middle East, but also cause a catastrophic shock to the global economy and energy markets. The Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point for global oil and LNG shipments, lies right in the middle of the potential conflict zone. Any disruption there would send energy prices skyrocketing, affecting every corner of the globe. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff recently suggested that, while the president is firm, the administration still holds a conditional openness to talks if certain criteria, such as a halt to executions and nuclear enrichment, are met. This carrot and stick approach aims to force Tehran into a corner where diplomacy becomes their only viable path for survival. The 2026 approach to Iran reflects a broader Trump doctrine that prioritizes transactional strength and unpredictable signaling. By moving troops out of Al-Udeid while simultaneously moving the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group into the region, the administration is sending a dual message: we are protecting our people, but we are also ready to strike. This unpredictability is a deliberate strategy intended to keep the Iranian leadership off balance. If Tehran believes a strike is imminent, they may hesitate to carry out further crackdowns. If they believe the U.S. is retreating, they may overplay their hand. By withdrawing personnel, Trump is also effectively clearing the deck, ensuring that there are fewer American targets for Iranian proxies to hit if hostilities break out. This reduces the domestic political risk for the president while maintaining a potent offensive capability through carrier groups and long-range assets that don't rely on fixed regional bases. The ramifications of this standoff extend far beyond the Persian Gulf. Global markets have already begun to price in a risk premium due to the uncertainty surrounding Al Udeid. Shipping insurance rates for tankers in the region have climbed, and investors are closely watching the Biden-Trump transition era's impact on long-term stability. Furthermore, this conflict draws in other global players. Russia and China, both of whom have significant interests in Iran, are watching the U.S. movements with concern. China relies heavily on Iranian oil, while Russia views Iran as a key strategic partner in the Middle East. If the U.S. were to engage in military action, it could potentially push Tehran closer to an Eastern axis, further complicating the global security architecture. The withdrawal from Qatar, therefore, is not just a tactical military move, it is a signal that the era of status quo security in the Middle East is over, replaced by a much more fluid and dangerous reality. As we look toward the coming weeks, the situation remains incredibly fluid. The withdrawal of American personnel from Qatar is a clear indicator that the U.S. is preparing for all contingencies, whether it be a surgical strike or a long-term shift in regional basing. President Trump's warnings have set a high bar for the Iranian government, and the world is now waiting to see if Tehran will blink or double down on its current path. History has shown that miscalculations in this part of the world can lead to decades of consequences. Whether this leads to a new diplomatic framework or a major regional conflict will depend on the decisions made in both Washington and Tehran in the coming days. We will continue to monitor these developments and provide updates as more information becomes available from the ground. Understanding these complex moves is essential for anyone following global news, as the outcome will undoubtedly shape the geopolitical landscape for the rest of 2026 and beyond.